Alrighty, so today I want to talk to you about the 2 ways you can deal with a narcissist to protect your well-being. And there's really only 2 ways that you can deal with these people that enable you to protect your own sanity and your emotions. So the first way is, it's called no contact. 100% no contact. You cut this person off and you never talk to them again, you never see them again, and you basically just have to shut the door on this individual. So I have experience in doing this, and this all relates back to my narcissistic mother, who's the first narcissist in my life that had the most dramatic impact. For many, many years, she tormented me psychologically and emotionally throughout my life. It all came to a head when I had been drinking a ton, smoking weed a ton, and I was kind of at this low emotionally, super depressed, in a bad relationship, in a bad place, and I was listening to a friend of mine talk about his mother, which I don't know if she's a narcissist or whatever, but he cut her off 100%, and he kind of presented that idea to me of if there's someone in your life that's causing you all these problems, and what it seems to be actively trying to destroy your life, just cut them off. And so that's what I did. And this is before I knew my mother was a narcissist, but she was really involved in every aspect of my life, and especially in this relationship I was in, where I was super depressed, and she manipulated me and hammered me so much to stay with this girl, and I really didn't want to. I knew after a few months of us dating that I didn't want to be with her, and my mother hammered me so much to stick it out, so it lasted 5 years. The whole time I drank so much, and anyway, it was terrible. So I was super depressed, and I kept drinking and driving. I got a DUI, and it was, I was either going to die or something else was going to have to change. And so I made the decision to cut off my narcissistic mother and stop drinking and doing drugs and start getting my life together. So as soon as I quit talking with her and dealing with her and seeing her, it all opened up, and I was able to stop drinking, stop smoking weed. I broke up with that girl, moved out of that situation, and I just rebuilt. I was kind of at zero. I was living in a camper in my brother's driveway, and I just started focusing solely on myself. And so that technique was 100% no contact with the narcissist. And I think if you can get to that place, that is the absolute best, because you can just move on with your life. Because these narcissistic people, all they want to do is bring you down, and then they want to get you addicted to their weird hot and cold kind of love that they want to do on you. They want to be in your life to just suck your energy, and they're happy. They're happy if you're doing bad. My mom was thrilled I was depressed and everything was terrible in my life, because she could just be a part of it and just manipulate it and control it. But I cut her off for 1 year, and it was the biggest growth I've ever had in my life. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped smoking weed. I started my own business. I met my wife, who now we have 2 kids and an amazing life. And I really just became a way better person. But the problem is that I didn't know that my mother was a raging narcissist. So after that year, and this is around the time when I met my wife, I let her back into my life. And, you know, once you let these narcissists back into your life and you don't understand who they are and what they're up to, it'll just erode all the work. But I was committed to sobriety. So rather than running from all my feelings, I was forced to confront them, and ultimately I wanted to gain understanding of what was happening. So that led me into the discovery of understanding narcissism and the effects that it was having on my life. So now that leads me into the other way that you can relate to a narcissist, and this is really if you just have to. So this is called the gray zone. And I didn't know that my mom was a narcissist, and my wife and I decided to move to my parents' property and remodel their guest house and move our family into their guest house. And we romanticized the idea of grandma and grandpa are on the property. You know, my wife and I live there with our first daughter, and it's going to be great because you think family together, grandma and grandpa help you out, it's going to be amazing. But the problem is that a narcissist in any family dynamic completely ruins that love and connection that families have. That's their sole intention. They want to sever every single relationship in that family and alienate the people that they don't like. And one thing about my wife is what's really interesting, and I've learned this, within all these narcissistic roles that people play in these relationships, there's one specific role, and it's called the seer. And these are the people that they don't fall for the narcissist game, and they don't fall under the narcissist spell, and they see clearly what's happening. And what's interesting about my wife is she grew up in a narcissistic environment with her sister was a raging narcissist. She saw through it her whole life and then chose to completely 100% detach from that and move far away and just have her own life. But when she met me, she observed something was wrong. And so I married a seer, and she's been able to really enlighten me. She's the one who introduced the concept of narcissism as I was trying to gain understanding about my mother's behavior. Because we have now moved onto their property, and she's back in my life, and it's not going great. So after learning about narcissism and that my mother is a raging narcissist and it's detrimental to my well-being and my family's well-being, we had to figure out a strategy on how to deal with this person, because now we've moved onto their property and, you know, we're kind of there and we have to make the best of it. So this is the second way of how to relate to these people, and it's called the gray zone, which I already said, but that's how you can, you know, that's a term of how you can think about it. So the gray zone, you have to always keep in mind that these narcissists' main objective is to suck your life energy and ruin your life and make you miserable. So if you always keep that in mind, you can observe what they do and you won't get sucked into it, because all they're going to try to do is suck you into their weird drama and story. And if you can remain steadfast and always remember that they don't have your best interest in mind, and really they want to just derail your whole life. So with my mother, I made an attempt to try to reason with her to get to a better place, but you can't reason with a narcissist. As I said in my last video, you can either 100% cut them off or do this gray zone thing. And what I've implemented in this gray zone is I don't communicate with her because she can't be nice and reasonable. So I've said I don't want any communication. All I really get is I see her and I say hi to her on occasion. But even though that's where our relationship is at, I view her as this kind of insane child, because that's really how she is. Because when she sees me, she does this weird thing where she hunches over and acts real sad, and she tries to project that onto me to make me feel bad. So even though I'm not speaking with her, we're not communicating, she's still projecting this weird energy at me. And, it's still strange. But the only way to live around a narcissist, and if they're in your life, is you have to do the gray zone. And like I said, the first thing is to think of them, always remember what they're up to. Second thing, just think of them as an insane child, and then you kind of see them as they're not, it's not this adult figure that has influence in your life, they're just this insane child. And then the third thing is, if you have an emotional baseline that you can always fall back on, where you know what is reality, because the narcissist always tries to manipulate your emotional reality. And if you can understand and develop a baseline of a normal emotional reality, you can maintain that gray zone with them. Because even like with my mom, even though I'm not speaking with her, she still tries to manipulate my emotions through, perceiving that, she's so sad and everything is so terrible for her. But you have to keep in mind that your emotional baseline is going to be your main foundation for maintaining that gray zone. So anyway, that's what I do to protect myself from the narcissist, operating in this gray zone with them when they're in your life, but they're in your life in a limited capacity. If you can cut this person off 100%, then I would do it, because that's how you'll have the most growth in your life. Because at the end of the day, life is about what you make of it and what you can share with everyone around you. And if there's people in your life that are actively trying to bring you down, it's harder to just enjoy yourself and enjoy the company of others and have rich experiences. So you have to make that decision for yourself. If you need to do the gray zone, especially if it's a narcissistic parent, then utilize what I said, especially the emotional foundation of what's real, and that what emotions and feelings are healthy. Anyway, so that's what I do. It continues. It's not easy, especially if the narcissist is in your life. But it is helpful to share. That's why I'm doing these videos, is to share with you my experience. And this is just, in real time as things evolve. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.